Hello?
Hello.
Hi there.
Hey. Um, I'm gonna call Harry. Give me a second.
Yep, Harry, that's the one. He's actually the artist from MPBD Rush and from some things in Selfie as well.
Yeah, he's done all the teletext art, correct?
Yep, yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, he's sort of like the authority on teletext in the whole world.
Yeah, a lot of his stuff in I like the stuff that he's done in Selfie.
Yep. Okay,
Uh,
so are we live now?
uh, yeah, we are. We should be live now.
Oh, hi.
All right. So, I think you should be the one to, introduce yourself, just in case people don't know who you are.
Okay, right. Hi, I'm Dylan Barry. I'm the designer at RailSlaveGames. Um, and this is my partner in crime, Harry Yak, or Dan Farrimond, as he likes to be known as well. Um,
Either's fine by me.
who? What?
Either's
Either.
fine. Either's fine.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. That's Dan, and he mainly deals with like the teletext stuff, which is sort of like a retro future internet from the 1980s and 70s. Um, yeah, we made a few games. We made MPPD Rush. We made the what's the word? The infamous Uriel's Chasm. We made that as well. Um, Snowflake Tattoo, which came out a few weeks ago, and in about a month's time, Selfie, the Sisters of the Amniotic Lens, which is like our Michael Bay production sort of thing.
Yeah, and I guess we'll start talking about NPPD Rush because that's the first game you guys put out, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
So,
So I guess I'll start with, you know, generally when it comes to like game development and your guys' inspirations behind that sort of thing. Like when did you decide that games were the thing you wanted to like do with your life, so to speak?
well, for me, it was about two years ago, and I started to look into some game engines kind of thing, which I never really knew anything about before, and I tried my hand at like RPG Maker and a couple of things like that, and eventually I found my way to something called Construct 2, which is a very easy to use thing, and I never really had a background in computer games programming, so what it taught me was the logic behind it. And once I started to get things moving across the screen, and like it really ignited something in my imagination, because I've been a big fan of games all my life, from the arcades and the home computers in the 80s, and the Sega Mega Drive, the Genesis, and all that. And as soon as I started to get things going across the screen, then I started to write like short stories about, like, not so much about the gameplay and the elements in the gameplay, but the universe and like the stories that I wanted to tell. And yeah, that was sort of the start of it for me.
And I guess this next question is for Harry. He's done all the like teletext art. There's some on the screen right now. It's I guess you describe it as retro. Um, how did you get into that sort of thing?
Well, here in the United Kingdom, teletext was an absolutely huge thing. It was the precursor to the internet through the 70s and through the 80s. So I grew up, admittedly, in the 90s, using teletext every day. Yeah, it was an everyday experience. I would use this news and information service, so it's ingrained in my psyche, if you will. And my own connection with making teletext art came when there was an open call in about 2011, 12 for entries to the International Teletext Art Festival. And I thought, what? People are making art out of teletext? I've got to have a go at this. So I guess there were about 15 or 20 of us that entered, and it was magnificent fun. And it was so successful that it's grown and grown and grown, and teletext art has become this sort of this behemoth that you would never expect it to be. At least over here in Europe. I don't know if that's
In
something that you
Wigan.
felt in. Yes, in Wigan, which is where I'm from. Yes. So yeah, it's been ingrained in my psyche since I was about what the first time I got my teletext television in about what 1997.
Yeah, because I'm from the States and I'm fairly young, and before, like when we were setting all this stuff up, I'd never really heard of teletext, but I've like seen the sort of like aesthetic before.
Yeah, it's comparable to the ZX Spectrum, which you might have heard of, the Commodore 64, maybe to a lesser extent the Atari 2600. Yeah, in the graphical style, except it's
Did,
also got a text mode in as well.
they used it a lot for sports, didn't they? Did that cross over to the US? It's kind of like the
Um, I don't know. I guess there is some similar looking stuff like during like on the jumbotrons, I guess, during sporting events, but not quite like the stuff I've seen from you.
Yeah, teletext never really took off in the United States. I'm not sure why that is. I don't live there, so I won't be able to say.
yeah. It's quite interesting how we met because I wanted to make this game and for some reason I was really interested in glitchy kind of things and teletext and especially when teletext goes wrong as well. And kind of like it's like I made this little game, like a demo of a game called The Milk of Ultraviolet, before it came MPPD Rush, and I approached Dan, he's got a YouTube channel, and I asked him to like review the game for me, and he immediately recognized the kind of like the glitchy kind of thing, and we hit it off just over like the love of teletext and stuff.
Can I just say that that demo was rock hard? It was impossible to get through, and I think that's something that you've carried through into your modern games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I also wanted to bring up NPPD Rush because that was the first game I played from you, and it's sort of for those who don't know, it's like I guess twin stick shooter would be the easiest way to describe it, but it's got that sort of, and I guess this applies to most of your games. It's kind of like something you would find on like a bootleg cartridge, like back in the day. Like it's got that
Yeah.
sort of weirdness and
Yeah.
just sort of general offness in the controls and like the story. And is that something you intentionally went for in your games, or is that just like a
Yeah, I mean,
result?
it's sort of. The stuff I grew around, the stuff I grew up around was very similar to that. It's like in the 80s in the UK. I mean, I'm 36, and in the 80s, like most of the games that were big hits here were programmed by kids in the playground. It was an incredible scene. It was completely different to what was going on in the US, where you'd have these big games from Atari and stuff like that. Most of our big games are programmed by like 16-year-olds and stuff like that, and they really had a like an eccentricity. Is that the right word? They're really
If you
eccentric and kind of like full of imagination. It was exactly how you'd imagine like a fever dream of some kid in the playground. Like he should be learning stuff in school, but all day all he's thinking about is this game and like what he's going to do next and the story. And so just capturing that sort of that naivety as well. And yeah, I mean that's some of the feedback that I've got as well, and people have really picked up on that. That it's like some weird thing they'd find in the basement or something, and which I really like. I mean, a lot of it wasn't intentional. I mean, in my mind, in my naivety, I was making the best game that ever existed, which it isn't at all. I've come to realize it's like one of the lowest rated games on Steam or something. But I really enjoy the fact that I thought it was, and and hopefully there's a passion in there that comes through. I mean, it's obviously not the best game in the world, but at the time to me it was, and I really poured everything into it, and hopefully through the minimal interactions in the shops and stuff, there's like a little universe that builds kind of thing in people's imaginations, which was another part of the games in the 80s. I mean, there wasn't so much I mean, the graphical fidelity wasn't quite there yet, and you really had to bring your imagination to every single game, and we really want to invite people's imaginations back into games as well, and into the art form, like not
Mm.
filling all the gaps for them, sort of thing.
I think I should add that Dylan says, he keeps saying that, well, it's not the best game in the world there, but his influences are in the old Amstrad CPC games, which is another computer system that we had here in the UK in the 80s. And those Amsoft games, they weren't the
Yeah,
best games in the world, but they came packaged in with the computer. So everybody that had an Amstrad CPC had them. And, oh, look at this, some free games. Oh, these are pretty good for free games.
yeah,
Roland on the Ropes, Roland in the Caves. Some British viewers might be familiar with those. But at the heart, they aren't the best games in the world. But there's a charm and a
yeah.
simplicity about them.
I mean, it's funny as well. I mean, I've got quite a sense of humor, and because of our publisher, and because I like to go through bundles to make some money, kind of thing, and just to support myself. So from an early kind of time, we are basically labeled as bundleware kind of games, and which should have been offensive, but I like to feedback of stuff like that, and but my whole thing was to make the best games that you'd find on like a budget bundle kind of thing, like in the most unlikely places, just sort of.
Yeah, we became the shovelware queens, as it were.
Yeah, I did want to bring that up a little bit because I feel like a lot of the negativity around NPPD Rush and Uriel's Chasm, it comes from so many people having access to it, and like,
Yeah, I mean that is part of it. I mean in a way the games got sort of into the wrong hands, but in a way they got into the right hands because a lot of the stuff that I do is like reactionary. So just say I get a certain reaction for my last game, I'll answer that in the next game in some way,
Mm.
and from the moment I met Daryl Still, who's like our publisher, he recognised that there was some kind of like a punk thing going on with just the attitude that we were using towards the games and stuff. And I think that really came out in Uriel's Chasm. A lot of people misunderstood that game, but that was a reaction to a lot of things that were going on at the time in the games industry, and just in disillusionment with stuff. But we really sort of embraced that movement, and try to sort of like spearhead that sort of indie punk movement as well, because yeah, I mean we really think that we got like a strength in that area. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah, I get what you're saying. I wanted to talk a little bit about the sort of, because we've talked a bit, and you've said there's sort of like there's like a narrative strung between like all four of your games, right?
Yeah, there has become one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've only played 3. I've yet to play Snowflake Tattoo, but I feel like the narrative is presented in those games in a sort of, I guess, Dark Soulsian way, in that it's sort of there, but you do have to like dig a little deeper, because when you're playing Uriel's Chasm and like you're collecting the Bible quotes, you kind of can't read them, or else you can't really focus on the gameplay. Does that make sense? And I wanted to know if there was.
You sort of can. It was sort of like it wasn't so much an in joke, but with the Bible things in Uriel's Chasm, if you actually stop to read them, your faith automatically goes up, because the game assumes that you're reading them, so you can complete the level, which people misunderstood. But you can complete the level by standing still, because we're assuming that you're reading stuff, kind of thing, which people saw as kind of like a flaw in the game design, but that was intentional.
Dylan,
Yeah.
you've just given away the game's biggest secret.
That's okay, as long as people read things and think outside the box. Yeah, sorry, what were you?
Oh no, that was it. Did you not catch what I said?
The
Yeah, I
narrative.
mean, I suppose, I mean, with Snowflake Tattoo, I mean, that's actually because with MPPD Rush, I wasn't. I mean, I was very happy with it to start with, and then we kind of like we remade the game just because of a couple of issues, and I was never really that happy with it. But with Tattoo, it's basically the prequel to MPPD Rush, and it kind of explains. It kind of like elaborates on the story a bit. I mean, with MPPD Rush, it was basically a speed. It became a speed run game that you had 5 minutes to complete the game, and but within that game there was meant to be this vast universe, or like the beginning of like a really big story, like within 5 minutes. So with Snowflake Tattoo, we took that and we just ran, and it's basically it's set in outer space, and there's all kinds of stuff going on there. Like you find out what's going on with all the junkies and the girls and stuff being kidnapped, and it's just you know, I mean, it's still a very like a minimal arcade game, but you can just tell that there's like a bigger picture behind it all. But but there's enough space there for the player to come with their imagination and just kind of like fill some things in themselves, kind of thing. But with Snowflake Tattoo, that's definitely like an essential thing in the canon of in the canon of those two games. It's like it introduces a lot of new characters as well and new concepts, and kind of like it takes with MPPD Rush. You had like there was like a theme of like trafficking people and stuff.
Yeah.
And with Snowflake Tattoo, like we sort of like we go with that a bit. You know, we like expand that a bit more.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't, like I said, I haven't played Snowflake Tattoo, but it supposedly, from what I've read in the Steam description, it takes place from the perspective of like that sniper that would take aim at you, like when you took too long.
Yeah.
And all that stuff looks very interesting. No, it's
I mean, it's sort of like, I mean, it's like the early 80s games. I mean, the concept was sometimes it was greater than the game, and I was so excited. I mean, I was walking the dog or something, and that just idea just hit me like a bolt out of the blue kind of thing. Just because a lot of people were quite annoyed by the sniper in MPPD Rush, and it was sort of like an annoying enemy. It kind of broke the game a bit. But I just thought I'm going to really elaborate on that person, who that person is behind the gun, and that was the last person that you would elaborate on if you were going to make a sequel or prequel. And I think it's really yeah, I mean, as you can see from the cover of Snowflake Tattoo, it's actually a sketch that I sort of done on some math paper, and it was just to kind of just encapsulate that kind of the fever dream, sort of the quality of like the way I work and the way I think and stuff, and just the passion, you know. I was just hoping that the passion would come out just behind the ideas, and yeah, and that's a very big thing to us. I mean, like whatever we do, a lot of people might not realize it, but there is a lot of passion behind it and imagination. Yeah.
One thing I'd just like to say about Snowflake Tattoo is it's actually a dual control type of game. So you can choose to control the bike that's moving around on the actual screen in the play area, and you can choose to control the sniper at the same time, or you can just choose one or the other if you wish. So
Can
I
you?
don't know if it's revolutionary in that. Well, that's what I got from playing the game.
All right,
I never.
all right, I didn't realize that.
Well, there you go. An extra added element that only a playtester could give you.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it's quite. I mean, it's quite interesting because with MPPD Rush, we had the shops as well, as you remember. You know, the different kind of. I mean, a lot of those faces, they were done by Dan in Teletext, but a lot of those faces have become quite iconic in the Steam sort of community. I've noticed a lot of Steam users have used those faces as their own, and you know, just
Yeah.
for the trade cards and stuff. It's been quite funny, but with Snowflake Tattoo, we sort of we got like a very like a minimal crafting system in its place, kind of thing, which is it's quite interesting because the people that you save, you actually need in the crafting, like some of their body material and stuff, so it gets a bit messy.
You mentioned Steam trading cards. I was going to bring this up later, but since you brought it up, I asked Elisa Dev yesterday about like how Steam sort of like pays out from the like the royalties you're supposed to get from Steam trading cards, and he didn't quite have an answer for that. And I wanted to know if you knew because all the games that you have that are out, they do have cards, right?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, and we definitely plan to put more cards out, for Selfie and stuff like that. Yeah, I just really like the system. I like the fact that not everyone is going to like our stuff, and I don't expect everyone to, and the vast majority won't. But I just like the fact that they can maybe make some money back if they don't like it. But it also is a nice way to expand the story. Like you mentioned about the Dark Souls, kind of you got to read into the backstory, and I think with the trading cards, that's a nice way to kind of to elaborate on some things that people might have just gone straight past in the game. But as to what people make with Steam trading cards, I wasn't aware that the developers actually made anything off the cards, and and that's not why we would make them anyway. But I don't think I make anything off the cards, unless the publisher's not telling me something. But it's just a really nice system, and with the snowflake tattoo, for instance, with the badges and the cards, like we've sort of snuck some of the community members into the badges this time as well. Because they've been so supportive. So we've got like a picture of them and turn them into a Steam badge and sort of made their dreams come true, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's been a Railslave Games tradition, hasn't it, from the very beginning? If we look back to MPPD Rush, The Milk of Ultraviolet, those pixel portraits are actual members of the YouTube retro video gaming community. And Dylan put out a call saying, "Hey, do you want to be digitized to go in a game?" And these guys requested and responded rather, and sent photographs for me to pixelate. And that's kind of something that's carried on
Yeah,
even up to
it's
now.
like
I know we're gonna go into Selfie soon, but that's a fairly big part of that game as well.
yeah, it's sort of a big part of the Railslave Games thing as well. Like we like to kind of bring as many people along with us as we can. I mean, we haven't really made much of our, like we haven't become like this massive thing. But I mean, for the little that we've done and the impact that we've had, we like to bring our sort of fans along with us and like involve them and get them on the cards and give them little roles. Like in Selfie, you'll notice as you started that it was like full of news anchors.
Yeah, sort of like amateur like news readings.
Yeah, yeah, like a few of them, and and they're all fans from Euro's Chasm, and people might not expect that there was any fans to that game, but
Yeah, and actually,
you'll meet them soon through the game.
yeah. Sorry, Dylan. I just want to bring up as well F. Tyler. He did a fan album, didn't he, of Uriel's Chasm, and then he ended up doing the full soundtrack for Snowflake Tattoo, which I have to say is fantastic. It's got elements of Zelda, elements of Metal Gear Solid in the soundtrack, which I really like, pulsating stuff.
Yeah, so we've yet to like really talk about Selfie, and been playing it for past 20 minutes on stream, so we should probably explain what's been going on. So,
It's probably quite confusing, I can imagine.
yeah, so let's start with I guess the first part, which is uh, the fly sequence. Um, how did that? First of all, you worked with someone to like develop the fly AI for that, right?
Yeah, with our programmer. Well, actually, with a couple of programmers, but one of them had other commitments. So
And then I believe the objective of the first part is you have to connect with six flies, right?
yeah, yeah,
And then
yeah,
a television will turn on with all sorts of nice teletext art, and you have to surf the channels, and you have to find you refer to it as an angel, correct?
yeah. That's it. It's sort of like, the way to think about it. The game didn't start off like this at all. It was something else completely different. But the way to think about it is, I was really influenced by Mirror Moon EP, and I don't know if you've played that game.
I've
Mirror
played a bit of it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, as you'll know, you start the first 10 minutes of that game. You're just completely confused, and you've got to turn your spaceship on, the lights. You've got to find the tape, turn the tape over, and it's basically and the room is our version of that. That room is basically your log on screen to the social network that comes afterwards, which we'll get into. But but what we've done, like in a fantasy way, we've kind of so we researched how flies work, and flies have got this incredible sense of smell. They live quite a random life, but when they smell something that they desire to eat or that keep them alive, their brain calculates a stable route from their position straight to that food, which can be like 5 miles away. So in a fantasy way, we sort of like we piggyback like six flies and their sense of smell through this lens into like a quantum dimension kind of thing, and they calculate a route kind of thing. It's sounds a bit insane, but I don't know if you're familiar with quantum mechanics, but yeah, with quantum mechanics, it basically says that every particle has got a twin particle, and this is science. But that twin particle could be anywhere in the world. It could be anywhere in the universe, and it could be anywhere in time. Like it could be in the past or the future or anything. So basically, your body is made up of billions of particles, or however many there is, and every one of those particles has got a twin particle that could be in a stone 3,000 years ago, or it could be um, in another animal somewhere, you know. And so basically, our thing with the flies is that they've got a twin in this other universe, and they calculate a route to their twin, basically, and so the whole thing of turning on the television is like you sort of like invoke a portal to this other world kind of thing, and then this angel comes and he guides you through into this other world sort of thing. And because the game's set in the 1980s, the teletext is there to kind of like to flavor that era and to keep it sort of like consistent with the 1980s.
I guess that's my cue to talk a little bit about the teletext. Is it Dylan?
Yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yes. The whole universe that I guess Dylan has created, I wanted to take and expand upon and inject my own sort of opinion of it, if you like. And the whole teletext service, it is a whole teletext service. There are over 50 teletext pages, not including the glitchy pages. And I wanted to bring in elements from his other games, MPPD Rush, Uriel's Chasm. If you look, there are lots and lots of throwbacks to these other games. But also, if you think about actual teletext services, they're mostly text, news, data, things like that. But this one is very visual based. I wanted to re envision what it would be like in this mythical 1980X that Dylan's created. It would mostly be very commercial. 90% of those pages are advertisements and commercials for these non existent and crazy products.
Oh yeah. Did there is just quite a lot of that, and there's also just just pictures like while I was scrolling through earlier, we just saw a picture of a cat.
Yes, oh yes, that is a gentleman by the name of JL76 Gaming's cat. And he said, "Oh, will you teletextize my cat?" So that made it into the game. So once again, another element of the fans, the community, being introduced into the game.
Nice. And then the thing we've been doing for on stream for the past I don't know 20 minutes or so is it's the space MMO as you described it to me, Dylan. It's quite different, and I'm not sure how I could actually explain it. So if you could do the honors of explaining
Alright,
what this is all
well,
about.
with Selfie, it's not so much a game as it's sort of like a short story, and basically it tells the story of this girl who was quite badly manipulated by a cult in the 1960s. But throughout the game, you actually play 8 people. So basically, you play each one of the people that sort of manipulated her and programmed her, and you also play the angel that was at the beginning of the game that asks you. So we've sort of got like a choose your class screen at the beginning of the game, and you get like a question, a very obscure question, like a dark kind of sort of like a Dark Souls thing, I probably imagine. And your answer basically um, it becomes your profile and your class. So so your class is in your answer. So when you enter the space section, there's basically um, it's loaded with like a load of tiny little bottles. D- don't know if you can see them, but they're very small. I mean, they're perhaps too small, but they kind of like they sparkle. They sparkle and stand out from the other stars in the background. Now, if you were to go up to one of those bottles and shoot one of them, then you get another menu, which basically it tells you another player's answer to that question in the beginning of the game. So you find another player's like profile, and you get the chance then to either condemn them and basically take all their score off them completely, just based on their answer, or you can save them. If you save them, then you're rewarded with the chance to actually write that person a personal message, which they'll get when they log in the next time if they check their messages. There's also a chance of like a critical fail. If you condemn someone and you critically fail, then it backfires on you and you lose all of your money. Or there's sort of like a critical fail if you save someone as well and you actually donate some money to them as well. So it's all in aid of build building up a little community within the space sections. But at the moment, because the game hasn't actually come out yet, and you're playing a beta version, a lot of the bottles are filled with like bots, dummy profiles, which just have like a Bible verse or something, which is like a throwback to Uriel's Chasm kind of thing. Because I couldn't think of anything deep and meaningful to give them. So yeah, but I mean there are about 30 real profiles amongst the bottles at the moment.
Yeah, I think I've run across a couple of them that weren't just, Bible verses, and there wasn't
Yeah.
really much there to see. But
It's actually good fun flying around shooting all the bots. You've got free license to do that now, because when actually all the real life players come in, you'll have too much of a conscience. You won't be able to destroy them all. So get in there while you can and just destroy those bottles, because they do regenerate each day. Is that right, Dylan?
Yeah, they should do. Yeah, but hopefully it's like a social experiment, and that's where the name Selfie comes in, because it becomes about the player then, and the eighth person you actually play is yourself, and how you interact with other people. It's like on Facebook, you can like you like someone's profile, but there's never like a dislike button. It's not like YouTube, the wild lands of YouTube. But 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 basically, I mean, if somebody I mean, just say you were to find a bottle where someone had poured out their heart, kind of thing, and their deepest kind of cries for help, which has actually happened in the beta testing. If you look hard enough, you can actually find some bottles where people have started to confide their deepest kind of fears and stuff. If you were to condemn that, it would weigh quite heavy on your conscience, I think, or it wouldn't be an immediate condemn. You would stop you in your tracks, and you'd have to consider yourself and what sort of a person you are to do that to somebody. Can't 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 think condemn someone who's bearing their soul to you, even though they're like a random person just
Yeah,
on the internet kind of thing.
a random person on the internet in this strange elite style BBC micro universe. It's a
Yeah,
good parallel going on there. Good.
yeah. I mean,
What's the
yeah.
word?
I mean, a lot of the design decision on that section as well. I mean, just with the visuals, was meant to look like, I don't know if um, it's like basically the very first space combat simulator game was called Elite. Don't know if you've played that or seen that.
yeah, I've seen a bit of the very first Elite.
Yeah, Elite. So it's meant to be like an homage to that kind of thing. I mean, you got to remember that the game is set in the 1980s as well. So I mean, we could have put all kinds of top quality graphics in there, but I mean, we wanted it to look like something that you would play in the 1980s.
Yeah, and
Yeah, so I mean, it's sort of like a social experiment, but hopefully it's in line with everything else we've been trying to do. With bringing the community into the games, and I really hope that some of the people that enjoy the game and find some other bottles, I really hope they sort of form some good friendships and meet each other. And I mean, we leave it quite open for anyone to write to each other. whatever they want to write to each other, sort of like support each other or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, when this game comes out, I'm very interested to see what, like, the community makes of it, because even just flying around interacting with bots it's not quite enough yet to see what you're going for, but I'm interested to see what the Steam community will do with this.
Yeah, I'm not expecting much. I mean, I know that the stuff that we make is very fringe and very abstract, so I'm not. And I mean, there is a danger that no one will play it and the place will be empty. But I mean, but with Rail Slave Games, it's always been about the one person that gets it, and I suppose that comes across from like because I'm a Christian and stuff, and that's one of our things. It's not so much about the crowd of people; it's about the one person that gets it, and that one person is really important to us. That they get it and they're inspired by it and they understand it, and so I'm not expecting like a mass understanding of it, but I mean, it would be cool to hear some of the stories of people that have actually how people have interacted with each other and how they've answered each other. And if they choose to, like, just say somebody does write something in there which is quite personal, and you know how someone's actually taken time out in our game to actually stop and write them a message of encouragement or something, like just to let them know it's okay or something, which I've actually seen myself because I've got access to the servers and I've actually read every single thing that's been on there, and it's been quite touching in some ways.
Yeah, be careful. Anything you write is going to be read by Dylan. Don't worry, he's not going to tell everybody.
No. Yeah, I mean, it will be interesting. It's very I mean, it's a very experimental game, and there's a lot of, and like Dark Souls, I mean, you do have to. It's sort of like the spiritual sequel to Uriel's Chasm, and you will have to do some homework to go away and read certain parts of the Bible to understand some of the concepts. Like the whole fact is, it's either day 6 or day 8. It never changes, even though the people you play change. But there's a very deep reason behind that, and yeah, so I'm hoping that people go away and sort of just read up on that and just be informed about things, and yeah.
But of course, you don't necessarily need to go and look that up to enjoy the game on a different level, but it just adds some flavor. It encourages you to go away and maybe look into this stuff, maybe get you interested in this stuff. But of course, you could just play it as a regular game where you drop in for 5 minutes, maybe speak to somebody via I don't know what it's called, the social network thing. We don't really have a name for it, do we, Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, it was a social network, but earlier on today, actually, some guy announced that he wanted to publish his blog on there every week or month. So I mean, it could even turn into like a blogging thing as well, which is quite exciting. I mean, there's been a couple of suggestions of things you can do with your profile and ways you can, because I mean, you could actually be playing the game, and if you're playing the game and someone finds your bottle in real time and they choose to condemn you, it screws you over in real time. So you could be building up this huge score, and all of a sudden you'll get completely sniped, which I think is quite similar to the Dark Souls mechanic, which I haven't played yet. But I mean, I'm influenced by it, from what I think it is, but I haven't actually played Dark Souls yet.
Well, I think that covers most of the topics about the games, pretty much. I do have a couple of things we want to talk about. You did mention you're a Christian, and
Yeah.
a lot of Uriel's Chasm has that sort of influence, with the Bible quotes, and I guess a lot of the names being based on the Book of Enoch, right?
Yeah, that does come into it.
Yeah. I wanted to know if, because that game seems to be pretty unpopular for whatever reason,
Oh yeah, completely unpopular. So,
if like, I wonder if anyone's like, trying to put this as eloquently as I can, but if anyone's like disliked it because of the religious aspect to it.
The unusual thing, um, the unusual thing is that no, they haven't at all. You know, I mean, I don't think I've had one negative comment about the Christianity in the game, which is very unusual because I was sort of anticipating that and maybe kind of trying to kind of like prod for that, you know, with it being like an unlicensed Bible game or whatever, or an unwanted Bible game. But no, I mean, there's been hardly any negative reaction to the fact it's got that. But I mean, it's not so much the game's not so much about the Bible. If you notice, the verses are not your kind of like the usual stuff that you see on bumper stickers. It's like the very hardcore things that you'd never hear in the church kind of thing. It's more about the interpretive technique of how they used to interpret stuff in the Bible. It's more about that than it is about the Bible, if you know what I mean. Just about like the allegorical technique or the typological technique. It's more of a celebration of that and how far you can push that. And with Selfie, I mean, we take that to the limits. So I mean, for me personally, that's where a lot of the enjoyment lay, was just in kind of constructing a story that could be interpreted in these kind of very deep kind of systems.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. There's a lot of, I guess, room for interpretation in what I've played of it so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much like the Bible you heard in Sunday school or anything. I mean, it's not like that at all.
It's the sort of thing that will get you chucked out of Sunday school, isn't it, Dylan?
Yes, Dad. Yeah, I mean, there is actually a bit of a nod to the days of Sunday school in the end of the game when you meet the kind of the god of the Sunday school, so, this huge giraffe sort of thing.
Oh, you just spoiled it again. Spoiling all your own games tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry. I don't think anyone could ever spoil that moment when the giraffe comes out. It's just, you know, horrendous.
Yeah, I guess those people who were going to call it for being a shameless Bible game would have completely changed their minds when they see this massive giraffe. Oh, it's not about the Bible. It's about something completely different. It's mental.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the very sad thing is, I mean, they didn't really complain about the Bible. I mean, they complained about the controls and stuff like that or whatever. But a lot
Oh,
of
you always get those people though, don't you?
yeah, but I mean, a lot of the hatred was actually directed to the girls that were in the video and their weight, which is really bad. You know, I mean, that was quite a disgusting thing.
It's just petty
To,
name calling though, isn't it?
like to witness, yeah. But I mean, it was sort of, I mean, it was made partially because of the Gamergate situation. It was sort of like a reaction to stuff like that, you know, just my disillusionment with stuff like that, and we basically we witnessed some of that first hand ourselves, because a lot of people actually thought that the girls had made the game, and we got some really horrible backlash because of that. So that was quite interesting, but sort of upsetting.
That's unfortunate to hear. But I asked about the the Bible issues because there's another game that came out a while ago. It's called El Shaddai Ascension of the Metatron. That's...
Yeah. Ah, yeah.
You heard of it?
Yeah, that's based on the Book of Enoch as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And
yeah.
That, you know, I haven't played it, but I assume in most of the story it's not about the Bible, but based on it. And I've seen people just say, I don't think I want to play this because I feel like it's pushing a religion onto me, and I don't want that. So.
No, I don't think that's the case at all with that game. You know, I mean, it actually looks like a really interesting take on things. And as you said, it's based on the Book of Enoch, which is it's non-biblical. It's kind of like banned in the church, kind of thing. So, no, I mean, I think that's probably a really good game. I haven't played it myself, but it does seem really interesting.
Sounds like Bible rock and roll to me. It's the sort of thing your mother wouldn't like. Enoch. Hello?
Oh yeah, sorry. was having a little issues with the Skype call, seeing if I could fix it for a second, but I think it's all good now.
Excellent.
Dylan, I wanted to ask you about, shooters, because I feel like those are kind of a big gameplay inspiration to you based on what I've played of two of your games. Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, what, you want to know how I got into them, or?
Yeah, because
Yeah, it's sort of like a funny story, really, because I sort of because a lot of my favorite games on the Sega Mega Drive, which would be the Genesis in the UK, were in the US, were sort of like with shoot 'em up games or shmups. And a couple of years ago, I found my way onto a forum called Shmups as well, a really popular forum, and I was sort of like, that's where I started to learn how to sort of make games and kind of meet other people that were making things, and I couldn't really compete, to be honest, because the way my imagination works is that everything has got to be original, and I found it quite sort of restrictive because, I mean, it's sort of controversial, but for me, the gameplay is not why I make games. I don't make games for gameplay. It's like I make games for the concepts and the stories and just the kind of the randomness and and just sort of stuff like that. And I found that with Shmups, they were sort of like the masters at the gameplay, and actually I learned a lot about like the bullet hell genre through that forum, and I was introduced to a lot of things like the Don Pachi games and Cave in general, and all these bullet hell games, which I really like, and stylistically they're just incredible and like they blow my mind completely. But I had to leave the forum because I felt a bit restricted as an artist, without trying to sound pretentious, but that was definitely the case. I felt like it's like I was sort of stuck into kind of like this gameplay thing, whereas as an artist, I felt like I had a lot more to offer than just like a solid game. I wanted to really like assault people's senses basically with a few things of music and colors and stuff.
I think that's one thing. Neither me nor Dylan come from this sort of game dev background. We're more artists. He's a musician. I'm an artist. So, two peas in a pod. Not.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the sort of thing that fuels Rail Slave Games. It's just the attitude that comes from the art world and the attitude that comes from the music world as well, which is something that we haven't really seen in the game world for a long time. And it's only since I watched sort of like Indie Game the movie, and I witnessed the developers speaking about their games as if they'd written a song. Like I said on a recent interview, like that I watched Ed McMillan,
yeah.
and I can't quite exactly what he said, but he was saying something about like his mother and father had a big argument and they smashed the house up, and so he made a game about it, kind of thing, which is very unusual to me because you wouldn't. Because if anything, you'd think someone would do some kind of dark artwork or put a pin in a doll or something, or write a song about it or something. But I mean, it was very unusual for me to actually hear that someone had made a game about it, and it really inspired me. It opened up my mind to what games can be, or what the medium can be. Because sometimes the actual name games restricts it, but this medium can do a lot. I mean, there's a lot more scope for this medium. I mean, it's just like, I mean, you've got the music, the art, the kind of the interactivity, all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's one of the things that we want to bring is just the attitude, like not as seasoned programmers or anything, but as seasoned artists who can maybe do a bit of programming and who love games. I mean, we love games completely. We've been involved with games for a long time, but I mean, for me personally, that's not my strong point. It's like the gameplay is not the strong point. It's the worlds. I mean, that's what I believe myself. Just the sensibility towards art and stuff.
Yeah, and I think, excuse me, a lot of your games, or at least Selfie, from what I've seen of it so far, it's a lot more about the concepts instead of the gameplay. And I think
Yeah,
games have evolved to a point where you have more games like this, and people will like question it less, so to speak, because we have games like Gone Home that are
yeah. I mean, that's an incredible game. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
That was actually a big influence on me. I mean, that was like another moment where I played something and realised how far games had come, and it was just incredible to be. Because when I went into Gone Home, I wasn't sure what sort of a game it was, and for the 3 hours, I was frightened out of my mind because I thought it was going to do like an amnesia on me, but then it just turned into like a chick flick sort of thing. But I mean, it was a really a powerful experience, and that was a big influence on Selfie, Gone Home. Yeah.
Yeah, and then touching back to the Edmund McMillan, I think the game he made was The Binding of Isaac, because that has a lot of religious imagery, and I've heard him talk about how yeah, so, excuse me, like it touches on a lot of his childhood trauma, like how his parents wouldn't let him play Magic because they thought it was demonic or something along those lines, and that's it's a very gameplay heavy game, but when you look into the story, all of that's there. Like you can see the person behind the game.
Yeah, it's like a very personal thing. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't expect sort of like someone at Epic or like Atari to make something that personal. I mean, you would have to go. I mean, you'd have to research like the demographic and kind of and all this other stuff, all this business stuff. It wouldn't be allowed to be that personal.
I don't think it could be either, because those games are commercial and they're made for the mass market. They're not necessarily like Railslave games, where these games are made for the niche, for the specific people who like this type of game, and they're not necessarily put out there to make £1 million. Although that would be fantastic. They're put out there to sort of provide something fun for these people who like this type of thing.
Yeah, and I think the whole indie game space, it's sort of getting a bit bigger now. There's places like itch.io where people can like easily publish games without having to go through Steam.
Yeah, it's funny really, because I mean itch.io has become like this really cool kind of like hip place to be. And all the comments that we get say, "Oh yeah, you're destroying Steam. You shouldn't be on Steam." So what should we do? Should we go to itch.io and be like cooler kind of thing? It's like, I don't know. I mean, I'm actually a big fan of like the game jolts and stuff like that, and I find the most inspiring games come from these places. Like in the jams as well, the game jams, and some of the things that come out of there, and just as I said, like the 80s, kind of like the UK, the bedroom programming scene, and just the crazy creativity that comes out of these places, and there's just no restriction on your imagination, and sometimes it's good to have a restriction, but sometimes it's nice to just experience like the raw feed from someone's creativity sort of thing.
Yeah, totally. I think it's been about an hour, and unfortunately, I have some other stuff planned for today. It was nice talking to both of you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes.
I wish you all the best with the charity as well.
All right. Yes. Thank you.
How is the marathon going, by the way, as a whole? How much have you raised so far?
When I checked earlier this morning, we were at $2,200 out of our $3,000 goal. But
fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to check once I'm setting up for my next part.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well done. Well, thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging out with you guys.
We could have helped in some small way, and yeah, and just say Selfie should be out on the 1st of May, but yeah, I'd read the description and think very hard about it before if it's something that you actually want.
Yeah, and
yeah, I'm sure there'll be a Steam sale coming up as well if you're a little bit on the fence about it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and cards and stuff. All right then.
All right, yeah. Thanks for stopping by, guys.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Sayonara.
See ya.